Well, all right. Well, without further ado, why don't we just jump into today's topic? I want to make a couple of things abundantly clear. I am, those of you who listen may not be able to see me, but I am wearing a mask and I am wearing gloves, and the mask is in keeping with city ordinances regarding safety in relation to the COVID-19 situation. So I just want to make that clear, and I am doing so at the Lighthouse for the Blind. And what I'm preparing today is a hamburger patty for yours truly, much to the envy of my coworkers who will get to watch me eat it afterwards. But it's not made for anyone else but myself. So I just want to give those disclaimers. Okay. Y'all want to go ahead and mute? Okay. All right. So what am I doing today? What are we doing today? So what are we going to do today is we're going to use the George Foremen Grill to prepare a hamburger patty, as it were. But I'm going to lay down some groundwork first before we jump right into that, okay? Now, I don't know, those of you listening I don't know if you've used a George Foremen Grill before, how familiar you are with them. I'm going to go over just some guidelines for them and some basics of how they're set up. And then I'm going to talk about a little bit about how do you know when a hamburger's done? How do you know when the meat has been cooked thoroughly? If you can't see, if you're blind, how do you know if something is prepared properly, or how do you have confidence without being able to see? Are there some other cues that would allow one to know if something has been cooked properly? Okay. All right. So why don't we go one step further here. I'm going to show you just a few other items I have with me in my repertoire. I have just so happen to have what's called a double-sided spatula. It's like a pair of tongs, but it's got spatula blades there at the top of the handle, and there's a little locking mechanism here on the back. You can pull it back, and which I'm doing now, and you'll unlock it so that you can make it so it's like a pair of tongs, and then you can pull it back to lock it in place so that way the spatula stay together. But this is going to be a particularly useful tool. I'll talk a little bit more about that shortly. And I also have with me a glove, an oven glove. It's not a mitt so much as it is a glove, and that will provide some added protection, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But we definitely want to emphasize safety above all else here. We are dealing with hot surfaces. One thing I really want to point out to you is something that we have discussed before in a prior lesson. When you're blind and you're in the kitchen, and we're in a kitchen space or in a cooking space, you want to make sure that your items that you're using are assembled in a place where you can get to them with easy, quick access, and at the same time making sure that it's in an area that you can get to. Now what I have here is an aluminum tray. Cookie sheet would work just fine, but it's the same idea. The cookie sheet, I'm going to pick it up, bring it over a little bit for those of you who may be able to see what I'm doing. The cookie sheet has all the items that I'm using, most of the items I'm using today, and it's just keeping everything contained in this deep dish aluminum tray. That way I'm not having to worry about knocking something over, I'm not having to worry about trying to grasp for something and not know where it's at. So it's all kind of contained in that box, if you will, okay? And in the tray I've got hamburger buns, sliced cheese, mustard, and pickles. So those are going to be my condiments eventually. And also I have the Foreman Grill here, which is at the very far end of this counter space, which is right close to the camera. And to the left of that, I have a paper plate that's covering the hamburger patty, which I've already made. And then also below that, I've got an empty paper plate for where I'm going to put my hamburger bun when it's cooked thoroughly, when it's done. Okay, so and that's just kind of a little bit of the lay of the land with my workspace here. Okay, any questions so far? All right. So, for clarification, for those of you listening, sometimes we forget to do this, Sean and I. How do you raise your hand, Sean?
If you're on the computer and you want to raise your hand to ask a question, it's Alt-Y. If you've dialed in the phone line, it is *9. And then I believe on the iPad you go to More, and then there's the option in there to raise your hand as well.
Awesome. All right, so let's talk about the George Foremen Grill. Why are these things so popular? Sean, you have one, don't you?
I do. I do. It's quite handy. It's portable, fairly portable.
Yeah.
And simple.
Simple, yeah. It's very
Plug it in and it heats up.
Exactly. Plug it in and it heats up. So that being said, when you plug this in, the heating surfaces immediately start to heat up. So most of them don't have an on switch, although I have seen some that do, or that have a temperature control. This one does not have that. Okay. What I almost kind of liken this to is like a panini maker. You ever used a panini maker before, Sean?
Yes, I have.
Mm-hmm. So it's similar to a panini maker, and it's real versatile. I mean, I've done all kinds of stuff with this over the years. I've cooked chicken breast on it, and I've cooked pork chops and steak. And one time, I even grilled a peanut butter and jelly sandwich on it, just because. So you could do a lot of things with it. It's very versatile. So the way it's laid out is, if it's not open, I'm closing the lid now. It's all attached to a hinge on the back. It's not particularly large, this model, but there's a hinge on the back. You can open it up. There's a handle here at the very front. You can grab a hold of the lip, lift it up, and there are two surfaces. They both have grill-like indentions on the surfaces, on the top and on the bottom. Okay, and one of the biggest advantages to the George Foreman for a lot of folks who are blind is that it heats on both sides. Both the surfaces heat at the same time, in other words. So you think about, you ever been on a grill outside, or if you've ever been trying to grill a hamburger in a skillet, you have to flip it, when you think it's cooked on one side. And in the case of the Foreman, we're talking about both surfaces heating at the same time. Okay? Now, the surface on the bottom here is kind of slanted down. You ever notice that, Sean?
Mm-hmm.
It's slanted downward. And the reason being is so that if there's grease in the case of the meat, it will slide down. It will drain off. Now, what's handy with a lot of these Foremans is how there's actually a little grease tray here to which you can catch the grease as it drains off and dispose of it in a cleanly manner. All right, so any questions so far? Any questions? All right. So I want to make something really, really clear to those of you listening. Many of you out there listening are certainly blind or low vision, and there's always this question of, well, can I touch the grill? Once it starts cooking, what am I to do? Am I going to preheat it, then put the patty on, or whatever the item happens to be? My principle usually has been leave it cold. Again, right now it's not plugged in, as I may have mentioned earlier, so these surfaces are cold. I can touch them right now. And if I can touch them, that means that I can put the patty on there. I can center it, tactilely using my sense of touch. I have that luxury. But if you preheat it and then you go to put the patty on, well, there's more of a likelihood of injury, or at least it might make you a little bit nervous. So, Sean, have you ever found that to be true? Is that what you do sometimes?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because, as folks who are blind, we touch things, and we have to confirm with our touch what's going on, what's happening with what's happening in the kitchen. All right. So, any questions so far? So again, the grill is off. It's not plugged in at the moment. Now, I have here on a plate to the left, parallel to the Foremen Grill, a hamburger patty, which I've already made. And I kept it pretty simple. Everybody has a different way of doing this. It's kind of hard to mess up a hamburger because everyone's got a different way of, making them. Some people like to make Worcestershire sauce or garlic powder or salt or pepper. What do you put in your hamburger, Sean?
Usually onion powder, garlic, and it just kind of varies.
It kind of varies.
Yeah.
Yeah, likewise. I used to put Lipton onion soup mix in there, round that up. Yeah, it was really, really tasty. Yeah, absolutely. Really, really good with turkey burgers, especially because turkey is kind of drier.
Right.
But we're using ground beef today, and I used
It was a McCormick's burger seasoning, I believe.
McCormick's burger seasoning. I've never heard of that. Sounds pretty good. All right, so we kind of talked a little bit about the Foreman, and hopefully I've made some things clear about that, and I'll describe more as we go on. But let's talk about how do we know when things are done cooking, especially when it comes to ground beef. Because let's be honest, you can use ground beef in a variety of ways, in a variety of recipes. Like, can you think of a couple, Sean?
Oh, spaghetti, chili,
chicken enchiladas, tacos. So if you can learn how to brown ground beef, if you can learn how to be confident in knowing how to tell when it's been cooked, then you can do a lot of different recipes. It gives you a lot of versatility in the kitchen. So let's talk about some ways, though, we can know when things are done. So first of all, texture. Now I'm holding the hamburger patty in my hand. By the way, earlier I mixed some garlic seasoning in this. My coworkers told me it was pretty potent. So we'll see when it starts cooking. I may have a line out the door here. I don't know. So the texture. When we start off before this patty is cooked, it's kind of how would you describe it, Shawnee?
Kind of spongy.
Spongy.
There's a chat.
Yep. Spongy. Yep. Soft, kind of mushy. Definitely a texture difference, to be sure. Okay, so that's going to be one of our biggest hints, biggest clues as to determining if it's been cooked. How about smell? Like right now, I don't know about you, I can't really smell this patty. There's not much of a scent to it. Would you agree, Sean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's kind of scentless. There is kind of a smell to it, but it's not very potent still. But what happens when you start cooking a hamburger patty? Isn't there kind of an aroma that develops? Wouldn't you say, Sean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it starts smelling like it's cooking, and there's a specific smell to hamburger meat as it cooks. So the smell is going to be another way of determining that the more potent the smell, the probably more thoroughly cooked it is. How about, have you ever...
Sound.
Sound. Thank you, Sean. So how would sound help us, Sean?
So the more ground beef cooks, the sizzle changes.
The sizzle changes. Would you say quietens?
Yes.
Yes, quietens.
Quietens?
Is that even a word? Did I just make that up?
I think
Make
so.
that up. Yeah, we're going to go with it, though.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Yeah, we're going to make it work. So it gets more quiet. How about that?
Mm-hmm.
What is this, grammar school? I thought we were cooking over here. All right. So I'm going to put the patty here down on the grill, because again, grill is off, okay? And the surface is cold. With it being off, I can determine if the patty is centered in the middle of the grill, and it is. Okay, so let's review. We've got 3 ways that we can tell if something has been cooked. We've got sound. You mentioned that it sizzle, gets more quiet as it cooks through. Smell, and texture. Texture, it's going to get harder, okay, as it cooks through. Any questions so far? One thing also I failed to mention earlier, and I do want to emphasize this, is that what I'm doing today, it certainly in no way replaces one-on-one in-home instruction, okay? So keeping that in mind, that this is kind of direct, indirect instruction, so just want to make that clear. If it were in person, it would probably be a little more thorough, but just keeping that in mind. All right. Well, patty's on. I'm oriented to my workspace here. Why don't we say we go ahead and plug this bad boy in? What do you think, Sean?
Sounds good.
All right. I'm going to plug it in here. I got my outlet here. I'm going to plug it in too.
Watch the camera.
Okay, we good? Am I good? Camera. Good. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. We're making sure the camera is not going to be bumped as I ever so gracefully plug in the Foremen Grill. All right. So immediately when I turn this grill on, when I plug it in, I'm turning it on effectively. There's no button. And now I'm going to close the lid. So I'm tapping on now, closing that down. Now, it is cold to begin with, so it will take a little bit longer for it to cook. But one thing I will mention is, as you become more comfortable with this, you may find yourself warming it up beforehand. John, do you ever find yourself doing that?
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's a little bit more advanced in the beginning as you're developing confidence and learning some safety techniques. But generally speaking,
I was just saying, I think we're starting to.
Yes. Generally speaking, if it's already preheated before you put the patty on, I would say it's about a 5-minute cook time. What do you think, Sean?
Mm-hmm.
About 5 minutes for it to cook on both sides. And again, that's the advantage of the Foreman, is it's cooking on both sides.
And it's going to depend on the size of the patty and
Correct.
that kind of thing as well. So
now, I'm going to come back around here for a moment and talk about this double-sided spatula. What's so great about this is that you can open it up, and I said earlier, like a pair of tongs. And so later what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the patty eventually off the grill using this.
Hold on, I can't see the black's blending with the.
Okay.
There you go.
There we go. Thank you. Alex is our videographer here for the moment. So using this spatula, you can grab the patty eventually, and by just using the tongs or the spatula, you can kind of squeeze the patty to determine the texture difference. You notice that, Sean?
Yeah.
Yeah, how you can squeeze the patty and how it's kind of crunchier or it's kind of harder texture compared to how it was originally.
yeah.
So that's going to be one way we're going to test to see if it's done or not. So that's going to be probably one of the biggest ways to know for sure. And you don't have to have a spatula like this, but it certainly can help, especially in the beginning when you're stepping out and trying new things.
Got any sizzling over there yet?
I don't have any sizzling. Well, got a little bit. I think maybe if I shut my yapper, maybe they could hear it. And now in the chat, what I'd like you guys to do is if you hear the sound of the sizzle, in a moment, I want you to raise your hand. Okay? Not to ask a question, just to tell me if you hear it or not. I know it may not be very audible at the moment. Ooh, okay, here's some.
Liz has her hand up. Go ahead, Liz.
I'm starting to hear the sizzle.
Can you hear it now, Liz?
Yes.
Okay, so now what you're hearing is the sound of the grease cooking in the burger. Sean, can you do me a favor? Can you set your timer on your phone for like, I don't know.
Unfortunately, I can't.
Oh.
But Alex can.
Yes.
My phone's being used for the
Sorry.
video, so.
How long?
I'd say about 4 minutes.
4 minutes?
Yeah, let's do 4 minutes.
Bob has his hand up. Go ahead, Bob.
Okay, Bob, can you hear it?
Yeah, I can hear it. It took me a little while to hear it because I had
Yeah,
my
it was kind
volume
of
down.
close. No, it's getting louder. I don't smell anything at the moment. Do you smell anything, Sean?
I
No,
smell it.
I think it's the,
I think maybe it's the mask.
I'm thinking you're right.
Yeah. Now, I'm not going to ask you guys in the chat if you could smell it. I wouldn't expect that because you're a little far away.
Yeah, I can't smell it yet.
We can do a lot of things virtually, but smelling isn't one of them. Not yet. Oh, no, I'm smelling it.
Mm-hmm.
They've been working on the smellophone, but I don't think I want one.
Did you say smellophone?
That is something they've actually, talked about is having digital scent.
That's remarkable. I
Yeah.
don't even know how that would work.
Have a device that would be great for advertising,
Yes.
online.
Maybe they can come out with like the Smellomatic 3000 or something. I don't know. All right, it's getting
Some sizzle. Definitely
some
smell
sizzle.
it. Definitely smell that garlic.
I don't know about you guys, but I like a little garlic and a little onion in my hamburger. What do you guys prefer? Have you guys write in the chat what you like in your hamburger? I always wonder, if I hadn't had one of these when I was in college, I would have had eaten so much less ramen noodle.
Pizzas, ramen noodles, and hamburgers.
Yes.
Usually.
And stay tuned because after we're done here, I'm gonna point out something that's really gonna help you guys with cleaning this afterward as well.
Just don't spill the grease.
No. I'm going to let Sean carry the grease out to the sink. He's very graceful. They're going to put that grease in a box and then carry it out there.
We can have a class on cleaning up grease.
Yeah.
Hey, Kevin.
Yes.
In the chat, Liz asks, if you're making 4 hamburgers, how do you determine? 1
second. I'm having some... Oh. Say it one more time.
When you're making multiple burgers, like how do you divide out the burgers? I think is what she's asking.
Good question. It depends on what you're using. This Foreman grill here can probably only accommodate 2 at a time. A larger grill would be able to accommodate more,
Yeah, I can get about 5 on mine.
5. Depends on the surface that you're using.
That's your alarm.
Oh, that's.
Is that our 4-minute alarm?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hold on, Liz. We're gonna check something out here. We're gonna go in here. I won't forget your question, I promise. But we're gonna check this out. So it sounds like it's still pretty loud to me. What do you think, Sean?
I think so.
So maybe the fact that it's still loud is an indication that it's still cooking. What do you think, Sean?
I think you're right.
So let's cook a little bit further here. I want to see if the sound will quieten at all. Ooh, still a grease here. But to answer your question, Liz, it depends on what kind of service you're using. I've seen it if you have like a really big skillet.
Equal size burger.
Equal size. I think of it like, think of a square. You got 2 patties on one side, 2 patties on the opposite, left and right. So basically the patties make for 4 corners. If you're thinking of a square. And then you just start with the top left, flip that one, bottom left, flip that, top right, so forth. So I don't know, but is that you kind of?
Yeah, I was just gonna say what's really makes it so much easier is that the fact that you don't have to flip them.
Yeah, in this case, this is very, very true. Yes. It all depends on the size of the grill. I think I had a chance here. Now, here in a moment, what I'm going to do is I'm going to unplug this grill because I'm pretty sure it's got enough heat to sustain cooking it further. But by turning it off, by unplugging it, you are essentially turning off the grill. Of course, it's going to have remaining heat to deal with, so you might want to let it sit for a moment. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to unplug this from our outlet over here. Hopefully I won't cause a catastrophe. A lot of moving parts here. There we go. Oops.
Kevin, Liz has her hand up.
Yes. Go ahead, Liz.
I had to find that pop up on mute box. Okay, so you're making 4 hamburgers. How do you make sure your 4 hamburger patties are the same size?
They have burger pressers and use a cookie cutter.
Yes, there is a cookie cutter. Is that what you said, Alex? Alex here mentioned well, why don't you go ahead and tell her what you said?
So Liz, in stores you can actually buy burger makers where you can shape the burger within this circular device, or you can use a cookie cutter, so then they all are exactly the same size. So you can use the metal piece and then stuff the ground beef or whatever you're making into the burger shape, stuff it in the cookie cutter, and then take the cookie cutter off, and then they're all going to be about the same size.
Okay, because currently I use like a measuring cup depending upon how much meat and how many I want to make, like a half cup or a 1 cup, and then flatten them out there.
Yeah, and there's not really a right way to do this or a wrong way. At the end of the day, the question is, are you being safe? That's the question. Are we practicing good safety? Now, I want to draw you guys' attention to something. Listen to the grill. Tell me if it's quieter or louder than when it started.
Definitely getting quieter.
Definitely getting quieter. So that sizzling sound effect is a good indication that it's done. Now, what I'm doing right now is I have on my hand here a glove. I'm a lefty, so there's not many of us around. Sean, you're not a lefty.
I'm a lefty. I'm a lefty
You are
as
a
well.
lefty.
Yeah.
That's right. Sean and I are both we're odd men out for many reasons. So I have a glove here on my right hand, and the only reason why I'm wearing this is so I'm going to interact with this grill here. I'm going to lift it up in a moment. I'm just putting a glove on just to be thorough, to make sure that this hand is protected while I'm holding the spatula in the opposite hand, in my left hand. Now, you don't have to do this at home. I'm just being thorough, but it is an option. Or you could use a pot holder, too. That's always an option. So I'm going to go ahead. I've located the lid. I'm going to lift it up. Voila. Let's see. It smells really good. And, oh, I just located it right there. Yep. Still, it's right where I left it at, Sean. That's good. Didn't move. It's always helpful. And one thing, sometimes with Foreman grills, if they get a little older, I've noticed that the plates, that the meat will stick to it more as a Teflon.
Yeah.
Erodes. Have you noticed that, Sean?
Yeah.
So likewise,
Sometimes a little cooking spray.
little cooking spray can help. Yeah, absolutely. This one's a pretty new model, so there's really not a lot of excess. But if you want to check if there's excess, you could take your spatula, start up here using it as an extension, and you just kind of go from one side of the grill to the other to check to see if there's any particle, any remaining piece of patty left. And it's not. So it looks like it was pretty cohesive. Now I'm going to reach in. Now we're in a glove, mind you, so I'm protected. So what I can do with wearing this glove is I can kind of locate the bun and then kind of scooch it over. Sometimes they can be a little tricky. You notice that, Sean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the bun just slid off the tray altogether. Oh, there it is. Got it. Located it. Yeah, that was pretty smooth. Wow. All right. So I'm holding the patty in my spatula, and I notice it's very different in the texture from when it originally began cooking. And so I can squeeze it, and I can tell it's hardened. I can take my hand opposite. I can go around the rim of it too. Even with this glove, I can go around the rim of the patty, and I can tell there's a texture change there. It's hardened. Hardened on the top and on the bottom and along the side. Okay, so now I'm going to put this patty, and I'm going to put it over here on the plate, which I had set up a moment ago. I'm going to put it on one of the hamburger buns that I placed there a moment ago. And remove my glove. All right. Put that aside. And voila. So we have here, looks to be a pretty well done hamburger patty. Smells good, feels good, hopefully it'll taste good. Any questions about that? Questions or comments? Or maybe you guys have some suggestions out there for the others listening, some things in your repertoire that you'd like to share with the group that you find has worked for you as somebody who's blind. Some of you out there may have been cooking for quite a while and have acquired a lot of skills. One thing I will share with you just briefly is, first of all, these George Foremen grills can be a pain to clean. You notice that, Sean?
Mm-hmm.
It can be quite difficult sometimes.
I can tell you, is that the Foreman that has the tray? Can you remove the trays from that
I
Foreman?
don't think so. I've not tried. I want to say no.
Okay, well, it's not my current one, but I used to have a Foreman where you could remove the plates, and it just makes a heck of a difference for cleaning them.
Yes. Yeah, I would love to have one of those at home. I have the one similar to this, but larger. So let me share with you a quick tip.
Kevin,
Yes.
Liz has her hand up.
Hello.
Hi. I can't tell, but the plate next to the plate was the hamburger. Was that the raw meat plate? Because that would be a safety thing. You might want to get rid of that quick before you bring up a cooked hamburger.
Sorry, say it again.
Okay, the plate that's next to the plate with a hamburger bun and a hamburger, was that the plate that had the raw meat on it? I can't tell.
Well, the plate that had the raw meat on it was already a patty, and it was covered by a paper towel. And
So it's
it
gone?
was adjacent to the grill. And I had a plate below that to where the actual patty would go after it was cooked. So I had it there because I have a small workspace here.
Okay.
The patty had already been made, prepared, and it had been covered thoroughly with a paper towel.
Well, one of the things I was thinking as a safety issue is you'd want to, like in your own kitchen, get rid of the plate that had the raw meat on it, because I use paper plates for that and throw them away.
Yeah, generally speaking, I don't have a kitchen space at the moment, so we're a little bit limited with this particular circumstance. But I understand what you're saying.
Right, you'd want to just, if you were at home, you'd want to remember to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, certainly. And there's a good principle to keep in mind that I usually clean as I go if I'm in my kitchen space. I'm not in my kitchen space at the moment, but I usually dispose of things after I'm done with them. So
Me too.
as not keep my workspace cluttered.
Me too.
So thank you. So one thing I was going to mention just briefly is when it comes to cleaning of these things, when you don't have a removable plate, is what I've done is you take a couple 2 or 3 paper towels, really dampen them, and then put them on the grill, close the grill, and then turn the grill on, plug it in for about 30 seconds to 45 seconds, and then unplug them. So what happens is the steam from the dampened paper towels helps to take off the excess meat and grease off of the plates. Now, if you do that, it'd be a good practice to unplug it quickly, about 30 seconds, 45 seconds, and then let it sit long enough for the plates to cool. You can touch it again. But once you do that, those paper towels, you can use the same ones, and that meat and brine will come off much more easily because of the steam that helps to take off that excess. So just a quick tip. Otherwise, if you're lucky like Sean, if you're all fancy, you have the removable plates.
Spent many a time scrubbing a George Foremen Grill.
So,
all right. Well,
any other questions? I know that was brief, but certainly encourage you guys to experiment at home. These are pretty user-friendly, I think, for the blind because they do cook on both sides. And they are portable. In fact, a couple of summers ago, we had given out a number of these to our Camp Lighthouse kids.
yeah, we did.
We had what was called a blind survival pack. I think we called it a blind survival kit. Because some of these young folks were going off to college, and they were needing some tools, and one of them was the foreman. You could use that in their dorm probably,
Right.
or many other places. Pretty compact, pretty convenient, pretty easy to use. So just real briefly, let's just review over just some technique for determining doneness. Does that even work?
We got all kinds of new words today.
I have a new lexicon. I keep making up words here. To determine when meat has been cooked thoroughly. So first we talked about was sound. So you notice how it was loud in the beginning as it sizzled, and then as it cooked through, it got more quiet. So that's a big indicator to know when it's done. The only thing about it to keep in mind is if you buy lean ground beef that has less grease, you won't have as much of a sizzle. Sean, have you discovered that?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so keep that in mind. That might be something that may not be as helpful to you if you get leaner meat. Texture again, it starts off spongy, and as it cooks through, it gets hardened, and you can tell the texture by using a fork to maybe prod it, or you can use a pair of spatulas double-sided to squeeze it to determine if it is in fact done. The other one is smell. It starts off with no smell. Then as it cooks through, it becomes more potent, fills up the room or the kitchen or the house. And then lastly, time. About a hamburger patty in a Foreman grill is going to be about 5 minutes. If you're cooking it for 15 minutes,
you'll have a hockey puck.
You'll like your hamburger really, really well done. So about 5 minutes, give or take. If it's already preheated before you put it on the grill, it's going to cook pretty quickly, probably within, 4 minutes, 5 at the very most. So those are some things to keep in mind that you can experiment with at home. Think about George Foremen grills too, that they're cheap. You can find them in a lot of places. I found them. There always seems to be at every Goodwill I've ever gone into. You notice that, Sean?
Yeah.
They're always at a Goodwill for like $5. So it's a cheap, convenient cooking item. So, all right. Any further questions or comments?
And as always, you can find these videos along with many others on our YouTube channel. Just search for Lighthouse FW. Keep track of our upcoming events on Facebook, Twitter, Lighthouse FW as well. Or you can go to www.lighthousefw.org/events.
Yes. And we have all of our videos on YouTube. We've amassed quite a library there.
Yeah.